bevo.com.
When you first arrived at the Royal Mail, it was losing about £1 million a day. So, and one of the first things you did, I understand, is you changed the name from Consignia back to the Royal Mail after they'd spent a lot of money on actually coming up with that name in the first place. So can you tell us, that was a bold decision to make. What was the reason that you did that?
Well, it wasn't bold. I mean, Consignia was the most stupid name you've ever, in your whole life. If you've got two of the best known brands in Britain, which I think Post Office is actually #1 and Royal Mail is #3, why would you then want to invent something else that nobody understood? And it was typical of, let's change the name of the company as if that's going to change anything that happens in the company. So it was, I hated the name from the beginning. And interesting, before I joined, I spent a bit of time out just talking to the posties. And I say to them, what's going on? Well, ever since we changed, and of course, ever since we changed the name to Consignia, they always thought that because we changed the name that everything was going wrong. Of course, it wasn't anything to do with it. So it was a very easy decision to take, and very popular. I mean, the other thing to do, when you go in to do something like that, and you want to signify a change, do something big, and if it can be big and popular at the same time, then it can tick a big box. So it was good. So Consignia was dead after a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I imagine the word royal as well. People sort of associate. I mean,
unbelievable. We're the only people, I think, who have the crown as part of their logo. So if it's called the Royal Mail for a reason. You had to get the Queen's permission to change the name. And as pointed out, the Queen was very supportive of changing the name back to the Royal Mail. I don't think she was very pleased it was called Consignia in the first place.
But what you say there just makes a lot of common sense. So how could companies get into a situation where they're ignoring common sense and put themselves into a situation where they're spending lots of money on silly name changes?
Well, it's a bit of job's worth. Sometimes boards forget what their job is, and it isn't to invent new names for companies. It's to make sure the companies work. If ever there's a lesson in what's happened in the last few months, those companies, those banks, the big names that don't exist anymore, don't exist, but all the governance boxes could have been ticked. But actually that wasn't the issue. The issue was, what was the business doing? How strong were those businesses? What are the issues in the business, and how close were the board to the real issues? And so for me, I think roles of boards, if you're not very careful, become all about governance and all about some of these crazy things, as opposed to it's pretty straightforward. Their job is to make sure the business functions well, and that the people who run the business on a day-to-day basis are good, doing what the right things are, and sort of testing and supporting them. So, common sense comes from the top, and is actually more often with the operators than it is at the top of the organisation.
bevo.com